Hey now, how is everybody doing? Welcome to Red Alert Diaries live with Tanya E. I'm wondering if you know the top 10 issues that people typically deal with. And if you listen to this morning's episode, then you already know one. But let's have a conversation about what we can do because if so many of us are walking through the same stuff, there has to be a way to get out of it. And I'm certain that you've heard a couple of the things that I'm going to share, but lots of times we have to hear something multiple times in order for it to truly register. And the thing that I got out of this morning's episode is what this lady did. So I was reading this story that I've read a couple of different times. But here's the thing that I know about some of the things that we walk through in life. Depending on where you are when you are experiencing it, it does something to you. You see things just a little bit different. So when I was reading that story, I saw things just a little bit different. You see, one of the main things that a lot of people are dealing with, stress. Stress from what's happening in the world. What are they doing? How are they going to get through? And we often allow ourselves to go through this pity party and worrying moment that does absolutely nothing to support us. And it is there that your stress gets deeper, your stress gets worse. So here's something I want to share with you that I've done. And mind you, this is going to be something that you're going to have to wash, rinse, repeat, because this is not something that you just do one time. There are things in life that we walk through. We like for it to be just done. I walk through it. I want it over. I don't want to have to deal with that anymore. But some things you'll have to revisit. You'll have to revisit it because there are things that you learn on one level, but you have another level of life that you are living. And as you grow into that next level of life, you'll have to walk through some of those similar experiences again. And if you do, then you're on a different level of learning it. So let me share with you the things that I learned in dealing with stress. First, acknowledge what's going on in your world because lots of times we are stressing over things that we have nothing that we can control, no way that we can do anything about it. And so we struggle. Acknowledging that it exists gives you an opportunity. What my grandmother would often say, if you can name it, then you can deal with it. So if you name what you're walking through, that experience that you're having, it'll give you a different perspective. And when you have a change in perspective, that's often one of your first steps out. And this morning's episode, I shared a story about a woman whose husband died, and she was dealing with a whole bunch of debt, things that she had never had to encounter. And I understand what that looks like. Because when I had come on the heels of my divorce, I had walked into new experiences that I had not dealt with before. You see, it wasn't the fact that I hadn't dealt with debt. I had financial chaos in my life before. But what I never had before that moment was how do I manage my emotional warfare while I'm managing the emotional warfare of my children? That leads me to number two. The second common issue that a lot of people have, parenting challenges. As parents, we want to make certain that our children are okay. We do everything that we can to ensure that they have a safe space, that they feel comfortable, that they can express themselves. But there comes a time when you have to let them walk through some of the storms as well. One of the things I wish I did when I was walking through the aftermath of my divorce, trying to figure it out, the boys did get the chance to have to stand up a little bit more, do a little more things than they had to do before. But I wish I had not, out of my personal guilt. Because here's the thing, if you are guilty about the situation that you put your children in, it was nothing to do with them. That divorce had nothing to do with them. They did not cause it, they were not involved in it. That was just an emotional breakdown that I had, which is one of those other touch points. But let's stick with this one for a moment. Because I was having an emotional breakdown, I did not want to have my children go through any other adverse things. And because there was just one parent in the household, I tried to balance what my ex did. And I really couldn't do that. You see, there's a reason God wants two parents in a home. There has to be an element where one parent sees something a little bit different. But if you are mommy and daddy doing both roles, doing both things, and trying to manage the house and make a living to make sure the household is okay, you miss things. And because you know you miss things, you overanalyze. compensate. Don't do that. Let your children walk through some of the storms while they're still with you. Navigate the journey. What I learned to do later, had I learned it sooner, things may be a little bit different. But what I learned to do later was put boundaries in place to let them fail and let them fail fast. Because what life is going to do, oh, life is going to force you to fail. And if you are already going to be forced to fail, if you help your children get it together first, they'll be in a better position later. So, what I wish I had done was put guardrails in place so they can fail faster at home, so that when they became adults, they had extra skills that they can fall back on to know that this is okay. Here's a third thing that we often experience as a common issue: dealing with our health. There's a lot of conversation about paying attention to your mental health, and I am so thankful that we are a little more cognizant of our well being. But a lot of us have to get into a better position about how we're going to do that because we're doing life and having so many things. We end up in that space where we don't pause. I shared with you a few episodes back. Rest. Rest is one of the things that I had to learn to do. And it's 4 pillars that I had to sit in. And when you pause and give yourself the opportunity to recover physically, recover mentally, recover relationally, recover emotionally, then you can rest. And when you do that, you get some clarity. When I decided to stop doing a rat race of living life, I paused long enough to say, hey, I could do this a little bit different. And in doing things a little bit different, I waited 30 minutes. Now, y'all, I never got beyond the 30 minutes. Those of you that know, you already recognize this. But in that 30 minutes that I did set aside, it gave me a chance to evaluate what was going on with the rest of my day. And the earlier you can start doing this, the better. So I rose long before my kids got up. Y'all, I was not an early bird person. Having children, they do some things with changing your schedule. So my schedule got changed with the little people, and I started rising early. Started off with 5 minutes. Don't give yourself too much at one time. If you cannot get through it, don't fight the battle. Start with 5 minutes. 5 minutes of grace for yourself. 5 minutes of space for yourself. 5 minutes in order for you to have the chance to think a little bit different about what you're walking through. And then you can have more of a vision in your relationships, your emotional elements, your spiritual elements, and then what's happening with you tangibly. Rest. Here's another thing that people walk through. One of the, what did I say, the fourth common factor that we often walk through in our issues: work-life balance. Yeah, we want to make certain that we do the things in work, but we also want to live this thing called life. That requires you being intentional. So I had to learn to be proactive. In this morning's episode, if you listen to that, I was sharing a story about the lady when she discovered her emotional breakdown. She also had, I'm certain, a spiritual breakdown. She was having a tangible breakdown because the people were coming to try to take her kids from her. She was proactive. She was proactive in moving forward. She went to go find someone to help her on her journey. Get some help with putting the boundaries that you need in place so that you can have a better life and work and life balance. Some moments you're going to have to just do things for yourself. So figure out what those things are. What can just you do? Other things others can do. And this is where, had I let my children be involved a little bit more, they could have failed a little bit faster at some life skills and some life things. And I think they did okay because they're two wonderful gentlemen. I don't have no major issues out of my kids. Well, young men, let me stop because they are grown and on their own. But here's the next thing. The sixth thing: time management. When we're dealing with things in life, how do we function with our time? Because we don't often think that we have enough. That 5 minute increment, see what you don't need to do. There were some things in my life I just decided, okay, if I don't do it, how long will it take before I have to actually be bothered with that one thing? And I discovered some things I never ever really had to deal with. See, some of our time is taken by allowing other people things get put on our plate. Some of our time is taken with just mind-numbing elements. Yes, I recognize if you work hard, you want to come home, sit down in front of the TV or play games or do something goofy. And there is a place for that. But how much time are you really spending on that? A lot of us can find that out because a lot of people have an app on their phone that tells you how much time that you are spending on your device. And there are some apps that give you a breakdown about how much time you're spending inside of different apps. Be proactive. That's one of the life balance elements, but it's also a time management piece that can support you. If you're proactive, engaging where you're spending your time, then you can balance it better. And that leads me to the next part. Our career concerns. A lot of us aren't working in places that we really want to work. For some of us, we may need to do this thing that this lady did in this morning's episode. So if you did not listen to this morning's episode, go back and pay attention. Because one of the things that she had to do was trust the little that she had. Some of us don't move further because we don't think that we have enough, or the little bit that we imagine what we bring to the table won't be sufficient. I want you to know that the little that you have is more than enough because somebody somewhere wishes they had the little bit that you know. Take that little bit and put it inside of a container that supports you. For some, that container that can take you out of that career that is no longer supporting you may be you sharing your story. You can write it down in a book. That was something that I did because I never intended to write a book. But when I shared the strategies and actionable steps that I took to get myself to a better position after the chaos of my divorce, I found a new way of living the life I love, doing the things that I enjoy. And those of you that know that I am now in my new marriage, almost 14 years. It's a strategy that I created. And in that strategy, the support is what I share with you that sat right on those pillars, resting in the deep foundation. That's the part that we forget. And that leads me into number 8. The 8th thing I want to share with you that people have common issues on is self-esteem. You can rebuild your self-esteem when you take some time to get the chance to know who you are at the core of your being. When I finally took the time to discover Tanya, the things that I like and don't like, the things that I will stand on, getting back to my core values. One of the things that I often teach, share, and show is that you had everything you needed from the very beginning. Had is a framework that I use inside of my coaching program, which is another container that I have packaged the little that I know to support others that have walked through my journey. And in that, I recognize that there are 3 elements to my being. If I decide to tap into the values that those 3 elements sit on, it gives me a space and place that I can maximize the use of it. So I tapped into my heart-centered soul, pull up the action that I needed, developed a strategy to move through the process. And that is how I elevated myself in my career. I moved up the career ladder, which is where I intended to be. And when I make decisions in my career that I want to transition and move, I just tap back in to the values that I already have birthed inside of my being. They're values that you have already existing in the midst of your soul. Tap into it. And when you choose to do that, it will give you the insight that you need to move into a better direction. And then here's the last thing to share: personal development. Some of us may need to grow a skill that we already have. That little that you think that you have, you may need to expand it by putting yourself in position to learn some things. There are authors, speakers, coaches, classes, books, various things that I have walked through to expand the skills that I have. Where can you tap into the extra skills that you think you need to do personal or professional development? Because when you decide to expand yourself in these areas, these 10 common issues that people often think exist in their world, you already have the strategies to get out of it and to move you into a better direction. And so for today, if you don't remember anything else I've shared, here's the one thing I want you to know. You may have a common issue with somebody else, but you do not have to stay common in what you know how to move yourself into a better position to get out of it. In this morning's episode, this woman's story that I shared, She recognized the little that she had, but she went and got the insight that she needed to pour the little that she had inside of a container that blessed her and blessed those around her. Because when you allow who you are at the core of your being to be a blessing to those around you, you will no longer walk into a space and place where you think that these 10 common issues will be an issue for you. And if anything that I've said resonates with you, then it is time for you to reset. So like, comment, and share. And go back and listen to this morning's episode. Leave your comments below and let me know your thoughts along the way. Because if you have other ways that you have walked through getting some insight or strategy into these 10 areas, oh, I would love to know how to get through those issues. And that way, we can grow together. In the meantime, this is Tanya E. Hood, walking in my purpose, and I want you to do the same.